Hey everybody! Are we out for the New Year's? Hopefully the chat will let me know if things are going to go well, if things are going well. This is a experiment for me, so very much be patient here. Things are going to go wrong, things are going to go bad. Hopefully my ability, and if I mess up, I promise not to swear too much. But I might get a little grumbly if I start messing up very bad. I'm not a professional with OBS software and doing live streaming. However, most of the things I do record on this channel is mostly in one take. So I do have that ability, and doing that sort of practices for live stream. So hopefully it'll go well for you. Obviously, let me know in the chat in the bottom right corner of the screen here. This chat may turn on and off every once in a while. It'll help me keep in touch with this thing. Is that Strangelove? That's Strangelove. Hey, Strangelove's here and Tony's here. How you doing? Be sure to behave yourselves so people could see what you're saying. The reason I put the chat up here this time, I figure, is because that way I don't sound schizophrenic if I'm talking to somebody or... Everyone, oh yes, dude, that's the thing. Oh, you're watching this in recording? Oh, I'm sorry, you didn't see what they said here. I'm reading what they said, and I sound sort of schizophrenic sometimes. So, Potato, dude. Hey, happy New Year's. Hey, how's it going, Potato? You're here, Potato's here too. So we got 3 people here, which is cool. So let's get started. So my thought on this whole thing is that we're gonna go do a review of the year and events of the year. Hopefully I can read things properly with my face covered up like this. Probably not. So I'm going to have to probably lean in a few times and go, oh, is that what they're saying on the chat? Because, you know, -2 to perception. +3 to charisma, whatever. But anyways, I always get started. So let's go through the review in the year. What I figured out is the first thing I'll do is I'll scroll through the archives of the articles at Flavor really quick to go over some of the things that happened in 2017. Then I'm going to go through and do my channel analytics. I have that up. And we'll go through and review some of the stuff, the good content of this year, some of the stuff that was, hit, some of the stuff that was missed. And then to wrap it all up, we're going to talk about 2018 and the future of the channel and any ideas and stuff like that. So it might take about 2 hours, I'm guessing. Hopefully it won't take that long, but it's something to start off with. So anyways, let's get started, shall we? So we're going to go to the archive first. So let's see. Here's where the here's where the dexterity thing comes into play. All right. Aha. Chat can go away for a second. All right, so we're going to go through this one left column here is all the 2017 articles. We're going to scroll really quick. Most of them are review articles. Flavor does a lot of review stuff. So, and most of the stuff and content we review is a bit on the oldish side. It's not really like new content or anything like that. So I think that's sort of the best way to go about doing it. So let's see. And I'm not going to do any of the news bit archives because those are there's a ton of stuff there. They'll do news bites and stuff like that of articles that other professional mediums have done. This one was a big one at the beginning of the year, which was ironic because back then this kind of social political thing wasn't really a big thing at the beginning of the year. It sort of blew up in the mainstream later on. But Vancouver, which is a furry convention in Vancouver, which is basically it's somewhat people who deal with rainforest also were sort of that convention. There's some overlap there. It's in that same general western region. They had an issue where they lost their artist guy from they lost one of their art show people, one of their main art show people, over a political issue where there was accusations of sexual misconduct and sort of quote unquote staff people not taking it seriously enough and stuff like that. Sort of a premonition of sort of that sort of direction of when things go. My take on this whole situation was, you know, we need to, volunteers are definitely needed at conventions. And that's something I didn't really mention too much in even the Midwest Fur Fest article and video I did, is that Midwest Fur Fest is really hurting at this point as well, because they lost the life of one of their people, and also like another one of their staff leaders, I believe the one that was the con chair this year, moved off to Seattle. So they really can't be too involved in Midwest Fur Fest anymore. So they have to like bring some people up. They're going to have to, bring people up in order to do that. So obviously we need people volunteering at the ground level so that they can move up. Someone did a review of Life of Pets, which is a 2016 film. Nico, the founder of Rainbow Tiger, died in the early part of this year. If for anyone who's not in the know, Rainbow Tiger was a club in Second Life. Very much a well-known furry club hangout, alongside like the Gay Yiff Club, which is still a thing, etc., etc. He unfortunately passed on. Ringtail Fox actually did a good piece on the Archie issue, like 6 months before it became official. I did a video on this channel covering that when it actually did happen. Ringtail was like more on the like, yeah, it's gonna happen thing, but it's like obviously it's like, well, we gotta take our time, let them officially announce it first. Like we could say that we could tell people that the fandom's kind of getting worried about it, but let's not jump to conclusions. But he was, of course, correct on that, and so that was good on him. I plugged my video on this last one for January, which was the controversy, like news media coverage of the furry fandom was interesting at the beginning of January because of the Donald Trump thing, where Donald Trump was becoming inaugurated and stuff like that. So, like, people were, like, everyone was talking about politics at the time, and, like, even people in the official news media started talking about fandom in a political light going on into that early part of the year. So I did a video on that. Putting it on Flera, I think they didn't upvote it too much because it seemed like a plug, which I guess that's sort of true. I could have probably done better with that and done all that. So we're gonna hey Tony, how's it going? Happy New Year. See, longer the roof streams, the better. Oh gosh, not too long, hopefully. I'll try and run through things really quick. I mean, this is a year in review after all, not like running through this entire year all over again. I did do a quick run through of February. These are mostly reviews. Fred Patton did a book about furry conventions up to 2015, which is a pretty good bibliography note. He talks about Nut Job 2 coming out and book reviews. So mostly that was what February was a cold and slow news week. I guess it's and then March happened. By the way, I don't know if you could see this. March happened. So this is my channel analytics. Let me see if you can see that. Yeah, you can. Cool. All right. So this is the entire year of 2017. You can kind of guess where March falls on the spectrum. Right here. Right, this really up curve right here. So March, March had some special stuff going on here. So March, some good stuff too, it looks like, even though we have some bad stuff in March as well. Zootopia won the Oscars, which kind of funnily enough I predicted in my in a video I did at the like after Donald Trump won the election. I was like, the Oscars are going to make it win now, because it's kind of funny because I said, well, the movie of Zootopia seemed like a preaching to the choir kind of thing. It's like you feel like, oh yeah, everyone knows that racism and bigotry are bad, and then Donald Trump gets elected, and I think a lot of people on the left are like, well, do we really know it's bad? And so, like, people in the Oscars, I thought, it's like, yeah, they're going to go that way. do we really know it's bad? And then so like they're like, oh, Zootopia no longer is preaching to the choir. It's like, oh, this is something we need to know right now. Particularly sort of the end bit where she says, life, like where Judy's like, life isn't perfect. Things don't always go the way you plan on it, but it's about moving forward. So it less becomes about preaching to the choir and more like, oh, well, yeah, like just keep trying to be the best you can despite the people around you acting not in the best manner sometimes, but we do what we can. He did. Looks like Fred did something about the movie about the West, that famous Chinese lore about the West thing that Dragon Ball Z is based off and stuff like that. They did another review of Five Fortunes. Gene Catalot unfortunately lost his life around this time. Gene Catalot was a pretty famous furry artist who did a webcomic series way back in the day. And unfortunately, he had lost his life that month. Furry Weekend Atlanta had an issue where the highway got a little congested, or at least there was going to be traveling issues to Furry Weekend Atlanta because there was a highway collapse of a major highway up north because of a fire that occurred because of there was like some piping, industrial piping underneath the highway, and it caught on fire, and like the bridge collapsed entirely. So that's a screenshot of Google Maps after the collapse there, and that little icon post at the very bottom is the basically where the furry convention is, Furry Week in Atlanta. So as you can tell, people approaching from the north going to have some issues traveling to the convention. So I figured that was an important thing to put out there before the thing. That can't be it for March. That's it for March. Did it happen in April? Maybe I'm a month off in my brain. Huh. Maybe I'm a month off in my brain. Let me check the chat real quick. Are you going to do more live streams this year? I don't know. Depends on how well this format goes. As I said at the beginning of the thing, I do most of my recordings in one take, so it is very plausible to naturally go into that thing. But for now, I'm just going to keep the live streaming to the gaming stuff and try to do pre-recordings for the news content, just so I have time to like think about things. This is more of a thought and review and process and stuff like that. So, sort of going over the events of the furry fandom over the last year really quick. And sort of me reacting to it a little bit because, it's a good to have a refresher on it. So, fledgling furry communities spread their wings at Eurofriends. So, this was actually... There's an interesting story behind this story, is that this one was in the backlog. For those of you who don't know, and I don't know if I have a link to the video, but Flavor had an issue in late 2016 where one of the editors was basically left the internet because he really got just stressed out to the point where he just didn't want to, he just basically left. And unfortunately, Green Reaper, who's the only other editor at the time, is so busy with Ink Bunny and dealing with Ink Bunny, which is their baby, that they basically had a backlog of news stories from so actually a good way to highlight this is to go to this News Bites. We usually do the News Bites on a monthly basis. We have this little thing on the side where people can put in a news story. Like somebody in the New York Times does a news story about animals or something like that, and people will put in the News Bites to sort of share it, and it goes to the Twitter feed. And at the end of the month, we sort of archive those News Bites so that they don't get lost in the ethers of time. And January 2017, which is when I started, Dronin and I started to take part in the editorial roles, basically back all the way until May 2016, Flavor didn't have any editors. So he went back and had to really, really work his butt off to get all this information from all the way back from May 2016 to the frickin' thing, all the way up to the current day. every other month, you'll see the archive thing go up pretty relatively quickly. Actually, I'm surprised I haven't seen that, unless he had to do it in 2 chunks. I can't remember quite right. Yeah, see, here's the news bites for March. So basically, he always was able to get the things. Usually when someone puts a news bite up, he'll have something in the background, or he has like a text document or something where he'll just like put the things up, and then he'll post it all up at the end of the month. So Drawing stays on top of that really well, which is nice of him. So this one was stuck in the archives for like until March. Growlithe, Growlithe is on my butt, particularly recently, about trying to get things up faster. I really claim that that's sort of the instant gratification mentality that we sort of have, which is ironic since he's not even American. But people are like, oh, I put something up, it should be up instantaneously, like a blog, and it's like, no, that's not how this sort of works. But yeah, we finally got that one up for him. Let's see. Furry commission system. I did this as sort of a coverage, and unfortunately I haven't heard much progress of this yet. I really, really am curious as to them getting this up. Furry Network basically wants to make it so that they can have you do commissions directly through their site, and they will handle the monetary thing. I go over it in detail here. They put their thing up for beta, and I used it to test it out, which is where I got this image from, which was a very nice image done. Like, that was freaking cool. She did it for pretty freaking cheap, too. She definitely deserves more money. I could probably give her more money for that. So this is where I go over how it works and stuff like that. And of course, Ink Bunny Man down here is probably commenting something. I can't read it. My face is covered in fur, but Ink Bunny guy's like, yeah, whatever. But anyways, okay, here it is. This article right here ruined an entire Monday afternoon for me. This is the Rocky Mountain Fur Con canceled due to neo-Nazi accusations. Now, and tax irregularities. Now, the tax irregularities, Dogpatch beat us to this punch. He actually wrote an article basically like the day before or just that day about the whole Deo receiving a cease and desist order in what seemed to be a sovereign citizen kind of manner. I have a full video on this particular incident, which is one of the most popular video on my channel, so probably everyone here has seen it, dealing with the whole issue of what went down here. Lamar, bless their heart, did find something about a new angle to sort of approach it at, so we didn't seem like sort of a Johnny-come-lately, we're the new kid in town sort of thing, where they were like, well, there's some tax irregularities on their Twitter feed. They claim that they're a nonprofit, but they lost their nonprofit status at some point in time due to irregularities from the IRS and blah, blah, blah. So they start, this article started as just that, just about the tax irregularities. Eventually, as Lamar and everyone else was talking more with the people at Rocky Mountain Fur Con, it came to be that Rocky Mountain Fur Con decided to close and not run this year. Basically, it decided to close its convention down. So while I was editing the story, another story came out, and I said, well, now we got to change the headliner because the headliner is that the convention's closing. So I knew, and he knew before everyone else knew, that the convention was closing. And I said, well, I'm going to change it so that it reads about that as the main topic at hand, that Rocky Mountain Fur Con is canceled. But we want to wait until Rocky Mountain Fur Con itself presents that information to the public, because we don't, you don't want to put out information and go, oh, well, this is going out to the public, and then they decide, oh, well, no, we're having the con this year, because then you look like a bunch of doofuses. So basically, I was like, I'm going to state that there, and I'm going to say that they made a statement, and then we're going to link the statement when they make the statement. And so that was what I spent my entire Monday, what was it, Monday the 10th? Oh my gosh, I memorized the date. Oh my gosh, I'm like leaning in. Was it Monday the 10th? Yes, it was Monday the 10th on April. Yeah, that was, that I spent all day, like, going back and forth with Lamar and editing this thing and getting it out there. Anyways, that was the nuts one. So I'm going to take a little peek at the chat here for a second. Let's see. Is the chat up? Bet. Can't bet. There we go. What was that? What was the best thing that happened in 2017? Well, obviously, me predicting that the Midwest Fur Fest they became the largest in 2017. That was pretty cool. That was pretty cool. Says he usually just upload them, just like the game streams. Post potato. Yeah, the actually about the stream actually self-publishes. This is a tool for YouTube. The streaming actually publishes after you close the stream out. So it's not like Twitch where you have to tell it to save. It actually does it automatically for you. If you don't want it to save, you actually have to go and either delete it or you have to tell YouTube not to save your streams. So that's something that, in case you didn't know about that. And then just after that, they had a poll about, are there too many furry conventions? Wow, that's quite the question to ask after we lost one, right? Man, people are so somber. Anyways, Midwest Fur Fest Takaza J. Wolf passes away. That was a very unfortunate thing. As I mentioned before, Midwest Fur Fest does need more volunteers as it continues to grow. And the people who lead the convention start to either move on or, unfortunately, pass on. So that's the news story about that. And that one was published by Dronin, I believe. It says, which of the furry conventions? Oh, okay. This is where this comes in. There's 6 furry conventions, I guess, that ran on the same weekend. And then people were voting on which one they were attending. I guess that's where the original question came from. Someone did a review about Rock Dog, which was released last year. Someone did another review about Isle of Dogs. And I believe that's it for April. So April was interesting. Yeah, actually, now that I look about it, it is like that's about the 3rd point. This is about the 4th point. So yeah, that's when those things went bad. All right, so let's go back and let's take a look at May 2017. Now at this point, I did a quick glance at some of the early stuff, but I didn't really look at these ones, so we'll enjoy it together. The history of N-Wave's furry features. Fred did a little thing on that. The full story of the lawsuit involving Peter S. Beagle. So, for those of you who don't know, Peter S. Beagle is an individual who wrote The Last Unicorn. That's what he's most well known for. He's a fantasy author. He's been having this legal strife with an individual that was his agent, I guess. That you can read more about that. But basically, like, he goes over, like, this has been going on for more than just this year, but this is sort of where it sort of brings you up to speed on what the courts are actually going about doing it. It sounds like Beagle's actually on the up and up, which is good. Like that he's actually making some progress against his agent. This goes into a lot of details about the court proceedings and all that. It still is a pending litigation, but seems like it's moving on just fine. And I think that was Equivamp who did that one. So that was a good one. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 review by Cross Affliction, pretty sure. Yeah, Cross Affliction does the view. Oh, this thing. Oh, this thing. No, not this thing. So, with the closing of Rocky Mountain FurCon, there was a lot of talk about freedom of speech and the furry fandom and stuff like that. That became a very big spiel. Interestingly enough, as that debate was raging on, I was interacting with a sort of a furry blog called the Furry Times, or as I coolly call it, the Fury Times. And I basically said one of our big readers sort of left and became part of the Furry Raiders, who was named what's her name, Perry Rhodes. So Perry Rhodes, who had an interest in furry history and stuff like that, all of a sudden went a little weird and joined the Furry Raiders. I don't know why. I still don't know why fully, but they they started writing articles for the Furry Times. Who the Furry Times was like desperate for to be known. He's a thirsty dude. He wants his furry site to be a news site. Though he's hesitant. It's a blog, stuff like that. It's a very weird story. I met him at Midwest Fur Fest at the nonfiction panel. He seems all right, an okay dude in person. Just as most people on the internet are okay people in person, when you get them on the internet, they act a little weird. I don't know why that is. So why do people act differently on the internet than they do in real life? I never understood that kind of a thing. Anyways, the internet makes people eccentric. But long of the short is I did a video thing here on this too, where I was discussing things on his website, and he basically just blocked my stuff. And basically, he's still under the excuse, and he told me in person that he considered what I wrote hate speech, and I'm like, no, fundamentally we have to disagree here, and fundamentally to me, calling critique hate speech is dangerous. Calling hate speech, if you're going to make it something that's a criminal offense or something that's bannable, you need to have a solid definition of what hate speech is and where that line is. Because if hate speech is just the implication that you weren't writing it that you were writing it with emotion, regardless if that's the definition, then it's criminal to speak with emotion, then that's problematic in and of itself. You know what I mean? That's the problem, right? You can't, hate speech is supposed to be speech that riles people up to attack other people. Its sole intent and purpose is to get other people to use violence against other people, right? That, in my mind, is what hate speech is, or what it should be defined as. Not I'm being critical of the person who wrote your article, and I'm presenting arguments as to, and by the way, arguments is a word that doesn't seem very positive. That must be hate speech. There's some differences between me and him on that, and that's sort of where that lies. But that's politic, which is why I tagged this as politics. I knew that was going to get things were going to get a little political up in here. I agree. Just sub to your potato hole. Just subscribe to your channel. Woo! Congratulations. There were some people. That there was some interesting movies this year. But interestingly enough, as far as furry movies go, 2017 really paled in comparison to 2016. 2016 was the year for furry movies. You had Zootopia, you had Kung Fu Panda 3, you had Rock Dog, you had The Secret Life of Pets. You had it's 5 nominees. It's usually we're hard pressed to come up with 5 nominees for furry movies, furry featured length films. But this 2016 was oh, there's one. You can just reach up in the sky and grab it, and you can go, woo! And it's but, 2017 was a little tougher. However, 2017, I think, was that way with anthropomorphic video games. There were so many freaking anthropomorphic video games. You could just think of it as we have Sonic Forces, Sonic Mania. You had Ukulele. You had Night in the Woods. You had, Dragons with Angel Scaly Wings. Now that you're getting obscure, but there were other mainstream ones too. And the Dragon Boy one, the third one, that was remastered. The Dragon's Trap, I believe it called Wonder Boy Dragon's Trap. That's what it was called. I never played that one on this channel, which was one I was planning on doing, but never really got around to. There were so many furry titles that I couldn't get around to them all in the year. which is crazy. And it's going to bleed over into next year. I'm sure I'll still have plenty of those to play for this thing. So we have another review here. Oh, this is when they revealed... oh, this is May, right? So this is when they revealed the original character, Sonic Forces. And speaking of Sonic Forces... I did a video on this channel. That was actually probably one of the most interesting things in 2016 was like them releasing this trailer on my actual birthday, and the wolf character looks very similar to my Fursona. It's weird, guys. It's strange. Anyway, New Zealand researcher probes furry mental health impact. By the way, I don't know about this article or what it's about, but I do need to say this. Is this image going to show up or PDF's loading? Wow, slow. This is a very intimate PDF here. But this image here that they use on their thing is like the furry stock photo of the century. This photo here is like from Eurofriend's 2014. This one here. I don't know if you guys can see it. Let me see if you can see it. Yeah, you can see it. Cool. All right, so... This right here, this stock photo, like I learned it was from Eurofriend's 2014. And it's not really a stock, like I don't know if this is really a stock photo, but dude, whoever took this image, you need to get some copyright crap on this because everybody is using it. Like, I've seen this picture around on so many different things. The infamous one that I remembered this stock photo from, and I did a video on this about furries and media coverage on furries and stuff like that, is when Ian Zhang, I think his name is, Ian Zhang, did a piece for Heat Street, and it was about the Bucks County issue, which was another thing, which wasn't printed on Flera, actually. There is an article in there by Joe Strike that's waiting for publication about the Bucks County child predator ring issue that occurred early on in this year. It said, basically his article wasn't really an article. He wrote a sentence saying, somebody else write about this because it makes me sick. And I'm like, dude, you can't take credit for that. And I already did a video on it, and it was kind of already, like, I didn't feel like writing an entire article on the frickin' thing. But... you know, unfortunately that did occur where like there was an issue, and that there was a few issues that occurred this year dealing with misconduct of different ways. But unfortunately, Ian used this photo on his article about it, and like basically the entire furry internet was like, dude, when you use photos like this on articles about sexual predators in the furry fandom, people are going to imply that these characters here are those predators, and you don't want to do that because that's no good. Like, you don't, like, it's defamation, quite honestly. Like, people don't realize, like, because, you know, I think this is the weird thing about photo things. Like, if you take photos of actual people and put them up somewhere, like, people, you know, know that that face is tied with a person, right? But when you have, like, mascot costumes going on, like, people almost forget that these costumes are uniquely designed, and they represent a unique individual. They're not just random animal costumes that you could just pick and choose and just put on any article you want. If you put pictures of random fursuits on a article about unsavory furries that got caught, it's gonna imply that those furries did the thing. It'd be like, and I did a video on this, and the video kind of describes it very well. It's like, it would be like saying a Democrat, like writing an article about a particular Democrat who got their hands caught in the cookie jar and did something corrupt, and then using a picture of, and I mean like actually literally, like let's say Bernie Sanders got caught doing something evil, and then you just say, you use the headline, Democrat gets caught doing something evil, and then you put a picture of Hillary Clinton on there. It's sort of like that, you know, where it's like, Hillary Clinton does nothing to do with the story at hand. It was, quote unquote, Bernie Sanders. But then, obviously, this is a freaking example. Don't take that too seriously. But you get what I mean here. It's like, ugh. I've seen furry photos used for Yeah, right. Yes, that photo is very popular. I also noticed with YouTube, I've seen a lot of furry raider pictures used, which is weird. Like they use the photos of furry raiders in order to just talk about random furry stuff, and it's like, um, using like Fox Miller's like Fursana fursuit there. Someone did a thing about Sing. Oh yeah, Sing was another 2016 film that was about furries. I knew I was forgetting one. And then there's the Coyote Awards. And by the way, there's now a third. I didn't do a video on this one this year, but now there's 3 writing awards in the furry fandom. I think there's too many now. Just in my personal opinion, it's like we have the Ursa Majors, which is a popular, people vote on the furry fandom stuff. You have frickin', what is it? You have the Coyote Awards, which is for the Furry Writers Guild, on which Furry Writers Guild basically votes on who the best thing people are in the year. And now we have a third type of award, which is for furry authors who have been published in the past 5 years. And Fred was bothering me about that because it's like, oh, you're a furry author who's published in the past 5 years. You should nominate for this new award for the Furry Book Review. And I'm like, there's a third one now? It's like, I don't, and the problem is for me is like, I don't read too much furry fiction. Unfortunately, I wish I had time to. But unfortunately, nonfiction has sort of taken over that part of my life, like to the point where it's like, I feel that furry nonfiction needs to have coverage. And I don't feel that there's enough people covering it, so I feel like I have to fill in that niche as far as a writer goes because I don't have time to write, and I also don't have time to read fiction as much as I do. Like, unfortunately, if I had the kind of life where I could like sit back and let other people do things for me, maybe I'd have time to do it, but I don't, unfortunately. So I don't feel I can contribute to those kind of awards as well as I could. So I don't vote on them because it's like if I don't have the experience, if I don't know what's actually written and what the quality of the work is, like I'm not going to be able to do that. Which, by the way, it's kind of, I don't know, like I think that awards, and I think that that's going on to another different topic, but in my mind, awards, when you're like, oh well, only people who write can give us awards. That's sort of like the artist that goes, well, you can't critique my work, you're not an artist. You know what I mean? That sort of elitist, sort of like, people can consume, you know what I'm saying? People can consume things and not have made them themselves, but consumed so many of them that they have a background in understanding what makes a good writing or what makes a good film without having the experience of writing it. Because in my mind, even in my mind, it's like I can write, but I can't critique other writers because I don't feel like I've read enough books in order to have that background in order to make a good critique. I guess that sort of goes into a whole other can of worms, and that's not really the year thing. But just so you know, there's a third frickin' review thing. There's a third one. It's crazy. Sorry for being quiet. I'm in the middle of getting ready for my sister-in-law's wedding. Oh yeah, that's right. You got the New Year's wedding thing going on, Mr. Strangelove. I remember you telling me about that. Yeah, which is why I'm kind of doing this early because I know that it's people got busy things to do tonight. So I was gonna do it from till what time is it? It's 12:40. We've already been doing this for almost an hour now, so let's get moving. We're only halfway through the year. June. News bites, archive, predator prey. Oh boy, implications there. Symbol of a nation. Fred actually wanted me to write a kangaroo one for that, and I should have, but I didn't. I got lazy. I had to basically, at the early part of this year, I had to catch up Flera so that it was kind of flowing again. It's flowing at this point, which is good. Furry fanzines, comics and furry history. That's the past. Sing. Someone else did a freaking review on Sing. A furry raider also died this year. It was in a car accident or a car incident that occurred. This article people got a little controversy on it. because I sort of talked about sort of the tragedy of, you know, people not being able to make amends or stuff like that. Some people get caught up in things that, you know, reflect poorly upon their life, but even if they could have had a chance to, you know, come back from it. And of course, that seemed politically charged to a lot of people, particularly in the Furry Raiders itself. So obviously that article got sort of a mixed feelings about it. I wrote what I felt to write was necessary to write at that time, and it was what it was. Top 10 movies of 2016. Cross Affliction starts coming back. Preliminaries. Do you have anthro with human or hairstyle for? I guess this was a big question. It's like, do you like the hairs? Review of Legend. Furry Nation was released this year. It's a major furry nonfiction book. If you're interested in furry nonfiction at all, I would suggest you pick it up. I've only read through about chapter 5 so far. It's got some interesting tidbits in it. I may do a review of it on this channel if I get time to read the rest of it. But it's also up for a nomination for nonfiction this year. And by the way, a lot of stuff on this channel is up for nomination in the Ursa Majors as well for nonfiction. So whoever's been putting those in, thank you very much for doing that. It's very much an honor to be put on the recommended list for furry nonfiction for this year. But as an asterisk to this, I will say that I hope Furry Nation wins, because writing a book about the furry fiction or furry nonfiction about the furry history and putting it all together and putting all that effort and work into it is very much more work than I put into any of my videos, and probably all of my videos combined for this year, I would say. Like, a book takes a long time to create, and I know how long it takes and how much effort it is to make a book versus making a video here and there about RIP Furry Fandom or the Ursa Majors or whatever. So I do hope he wins this one, because I could win it. I'll probably win it at least once in my lifetime, I am sure at this point. Like, because if I'm moving into the furry nonfiction thing, and like it's eventual, I'll make something that, you know, people are going to vote and let it win. I think it would be sort of tragic if I won this one and Furry Nation didn't get it, quite honestly. Because I don't think there's going to be a nonfiction furry book being released every year, because it's a really hard thing to do. But obviously I'll be releasing videos every week-ish, so, you know, that is what it is. The My Little Pony trailer came out for their movie that had Sia in it, I believe it was, and like all that other stuff. So that was June. So we're going to move on to July. How do you handle criticism in the furry fandom? So we have a question by one of the users on how do you handle criticism in the furry fandom. Handling criticism is a tricky business. It depends on the ability of the critic. If it's criticism, I can handle it quite well. If it's off the handle, useless garbage that somebody believes is critical but is actually just stupid, then that's when it gets a little like, can't take it too seriously. Like you should put as much feeling into a critique as effort was put into the critique. I guess that's the best way I could put it. If somebody wrote a paragraph about and analyzed what you did wrong, what you didn't do right, you should put effort into analyzing, you know, what their critique is. If they wrote one sentence and it has no information and it just says you suck, you should give it as much care and thought and belief as the person who wrote it, which is not much. That's the general sort of thing. Is this anyone who produces something in public? Yeah, people who do produce things publicly do have to have a thick skin. But at the same time, I do think that the general public does need to have a thick skin as well. It's not the end of the world if somebody makes something that sucks. unless you like really spent an hour watching it and then go, oh, well, this sucks and I wasted an hour of my time, then it can be a little bit frustrating. But like, you don't have to like think it's the end of the world for that. Anyways, we're going on to July. So Ursa Major winners were announced for 2016 at Anthrocon. I was present for about a part of that. I was a little late. Someone reviewed A Dog's Purpose. Oh man, that movie. That movie's sad. That movie's sad. Anyways, I've seen that. That's one of the few movies I've seen. What film would you want first? Zootopia 2 or Robin Hood Remastered? People want Zootopia 2, apparently. Someone reviewed The Autumn Lands. 1 year with Pokemon Go. Someone did a year review of Pokemon Go, which has been out for a year and a half now. Seems kind of strange. I can remember in 2016 when frickin' Hillary Clinton went, Pokemon Go to the polls. And, oh yeah, there was also, I don't remember if this was 2016 or 2012, but Herman Cain, I think this was 2012. Herman Cain did like a quote of Pokemon as well before that. Like he was like, it's never easy, it's always something when there's something on the line. I can't remember the exact quote, but it was like a quote from, he said, the Pokemon movie. That was the great, like, that was freaking awesome. It was freaking hilarious. It was, but it was a quote from like the song at the end of the credits. I think if you look up Herman Cain Pokemon, you'd be able to find videos on that. But that was freaking nuts. That was crazy. Vivisector ended up going downhill. I don't know if it's still downhill or not. Like, it ended up going offline. Vivisector was a very popular sort of furry, quote-unquote, drama forum. And presenting the unsavory parts of the furry fandom to the public. And it sort of went downhill. Apparently it went downhill because of inner drama, particularly around alt-right and stuff like that, similar to what the rest of the political fervor was at the beginning of the year, dealing with the alt-right and its rise and its sort of its troublesome viewpoints and like people, you know, disagreeing on free speech and all that stuff. I also sort of think that sites like Vivisector were kind of dying before this. Mostly because furry news sites are sort of filling that niche. The things that we used to put into private forums and stuff like that are generally moving out to the open. I did a video on this particular issue. I think that looking at things with a critical view, not trying to, you know, because back in the day, it's like a lot of furry things like that were unsavory or unproper were like brushed under the rug, and people were like, don't you dare lift that rug, put it in private forums. Those things, those private doors, for better or for worse, have eroded. People talk about things on Twitter. You know, all the social media is no longer private. Like all the safety precautions and rules that things like LiveJournal had no longer really apply. We've become the wild, wild west, as it were. It's kind of crazy. Marley and Me. Oh. That was it. And there was like other genres of furry, not furry, but animal movies. There's another genre, and not like the dog died one, like not like Old Yeller and like Marley and Me and stuff like that. Marley and Me was pretty bad. I remember Marley and Me. It was the one with Tom Hanks. There was another genre, and that was what I call the Animal Odyssey genre. Milo and Otis is like one of the first ones I can remember, and then after that there was like Homeward Bound: The Incredible Journey, you know, that where you get these animals that are having to go through the wilderness to get home, and that's why I call it the Animal Odyssey, because it's like they're trying to get home to their family, but they have to go through like this journey in order to get there. This one was a throwaway one. I didn't even remember this one. Andy Pandy. Something like with there's this whole like investigation going on around the president of the United States and his involvement with Russia. Apparently one of the guys that was being investigated had like an Andy Panda costume. and he sung an Andy Pandy song, so people were getting confused between Andy Pandy and Andy Panda, which are two completely different things. I can't even remember the ridiculousness of this. I remember I had like screenshots of this whole thing. Like, it's weird. It gets strange. So like, if you want to go find that one, it'd be on the July thing of Flera. And then Ringtail Fox gets to have his thing 6 months later. Remember, it was back in January when he first posted that it was gonna go happen, but now it actually happened. And this is why I think I covered this on my channel and not this, because this is obviously more mainstream. People would know what's going on with this. Like, basically, Archie lost the license to Sonic, and apparently IDW has got it, which I'm looking forward to see what IDW brings to the table as far as the Sonic the Hedgehog comic franchise goes. But that thing that, Ringtail was saying, hey, look what's happening early. It's like, and he goes, can I write it now? It's like, yes, you can write it. Go ahead and do it. Those are the two articles he wrote this year. This is my shortest article on Flera ever, which is something I joke about because I tend to be long-winded. Rocko's Modern Life had a trailer come out for a movie coming out. Let's see, UK first, Target by dubious Eurofriends photo solicitations. I guess Green Reaper found some people trying to get furry photos. I can't remember if this was actually, since this has to do with Europe and not really America too much, I didn't really get too deep into it. Or I didn't read too deep into it, but apparently there was people who were claiming to be professional photographers who wanted furry photos for some reason. I can't remember what the controversy behind that one was. ITV Morning had interviewed furries. I remember this one was kind of a little bit of a talky thing here. I think one of them tried to go down the dark side, and then the people around him were like, no, let's not go that way. I remember that about it. Not much else. Interestingly enough, I don't watch too much of the furries being covered by the mainstream press as much as I used to. Back when I was like, a younger furry, I was really interested in like, oh, there's furries on the Tyra Banks show, or oh, there's furries on the thing. And now I'm so like jaded with furries, like as general, I guess. It's like, oh, furries are on the mainstream press. Oh, you gotta see it. It's like, it's probably the same. It's either A, it's going to be terrible, and and I don't want. It's either A, it's going to be horrible, and it's going to make me want to palm my face, or B, it's going to be mostly harmless, and then I'm just going to be like, okay, that was cool. It's kind of weird that I've become jaded on that kind of a thing. But anyways, that was July. So now we're going to go to August. It's the cruel summer. The number of articles are starting to go up quite steadily, which is actually a good thing. It means I'm actually doing my job okay. Timothy and the Talking Cat is coming. I did a review of One Dog Story. We'll go over the video games I played on this channel later for this year. Actually, this is the first year I started streaming video games. And I started doing it this year, and the first one I ever did, and we'll go over that later, I guess. We'll go over that later. It's a furry event in China. This was actually an interesting read. I really enjoyed this read. We had a Hong Kong furry contribute to Flera about their experience attending a furry convention in China. This one was actually, I enjoyed this read. It was very much a culture shock as to like how a furry convention is run completely differently, and how low-key it has to sort of feel in mainland China. Also dealing with currency issues and things like that. So it's actually, I would actually suggest if you want to read about foreign furry conventions, definitely be a good one to read about. Let's see. August is Friendship Day in India. For some reason. Rat.org, the original fan repository, returns. Apparently, Rat.org brought itself out of archive mode. I guess it was like one of those original fan sites back in 1990. Back when the internet was like really young, it was like one of the first places where they had Sonic fan archives and stuff like that, even before fanfiction.net. I haven't really did much follow up on it, so I don't know if it's coming along or if it's sort of like, oh, cool, it's an old thing that's trying to come back. But you know, the problem with old things trying to come back sometimes is like the world sort of moved on, unfortunately, and sometimes when you try to bring back old things, they just fall apart. Like it's like, oh, the interest is, it's cool to have an archive like that, but obviously it'd be more like a museum than it would be a like a big thing, obviously, which is kind of cool because the internet has a very big tendency of losing things that you can never find again, which really is something that needs to be looked into. But yeah, like netraptor.org was a thing too, I remember. Big Bad Fox in America, I guess is an animated movie. Somebody else did a review of the furry conventions thing. This will be the second one this year. Sometimes there's some overlap. Or the Planet of the Apes. Cross Affliction did a review on that movie this year. Then this thing happened, and Equivamp did this run. Alt furry suffers blowback after alt-right rally leads to death of citizen. This had to do with the unfortunate event in Charlestonville that occurred this year. One lady lost her life when a jackass, as it were, drove his vehicle through a crowded protesting group of people. People who were sort of counter-protesting sort of a neo-Nazi, or actually I shouldn't say sort of a neo-Nazi rally that was occurring in Charlestonville. I believe her name was Heather. I can't remember her last name. But the guy like blew for a whole block and just ran over a bunch of people. So that sort of brought America's ire towards the alt-right, and so people, so basically alt-furry groups and alt-right groups started to receive some blowback from internet, companies and cloud-based services who are like, we're not going to tolerate this sort of thing, behavior or groups here anymore. People are still dealing with that kind of a thing to this day. So we got Robin Hood collection, which is nice. I think I should probably get that. To be somewhat cultured, I guess. I don't think I have a CD player to play it on, though. Bonicula. All right, so another furry convention began in Philadelphia. And apparently it was the fourth one to start up in Philadelphia, or to be taking place in Philadelphia. So Green Reaper covers that. Says insular furry communities. Okay, Lamar. This one was not well received in this because after Charlestonville, a lot of people wanted to cover alt-right furries and stuff like that. As far as Flera goes, we didn't cover that too much. And I think that that's actually for the best in a little bit of ways. I know a lot of people want to cover the alt-right furries and alt-furries. But I think Dogpatch Press does a very thorough job on that front. And I think that if you want somebody who's going to be vigilant, if you want a press organization that's going to be vigilant against that kind of organization, Dogpatch is what you should be supporting. But I think it's sort of I think in the ways, and not to sort of belittle, I don't think this thing is as big as the civil rights movement, but it's sort of like when you have someone like Martin Luther King versus Malcolm X. You have two different sort of attitudes as to how you deal with a situation. In the end, when you look at it in hindsight, those two different methods sort of work in tangent, where one is hey, we're all furries are awesome people, give us a chance. We're not gonna be angry at you, just we're gonna show you what Love and Peace is all about. And then you got the other ones who are if you mess with us, we're gonna freaking kick your butt. And you kind of need, in essence, in society, you sort of need both. You need a foundation of the community being good-natured and saying, this is what our community is all about. We're good-natured people. We're good folks. We'll help out those who need it. But also you need the folks who are like, if you mess around with our community, we ain't gonna take it lying down, and we'll be vigilant about it. So you sort of need both to sort of have a comfortable topic. So to me, if Dogpatch wants to cover alt furry a lot, and cover individuals who might be more hostile towards diversity and stuff like that, that's more well and good on them. But we, as Flera, I think, can cover sort of the furry content that a lot of people may enjoy more. And Dogpatch does that sometimes as well. I mean, actually, he does, like, he has Fred Patton now do a lot of his reviews and stuff like that. So he has that aspect as well. But as far as like furry politics goes, I think that, like, as far as like keeping track of the alt-right and the alt-right movement within the furry fandom, I think if you're looking for that kind of thing, like, Dogpatch has definitely got like the ball on it. And I think that's sort of what Lamar wants too. Like, Lamar wants a sort of a press that is vigilant against those kind of groups. And you could tell that Lamar sort of writes in that sort of style. I did like his piece on the Rocky Mountain fur thing, but as time went on, it's like you could tell he had an agenda, and like, that's fine to write your piece and say about your agenda. Do you think it's that much of a risk? Like, he's talking about mucks here. Like, mucks are old, right? Mucks in and of themselves are getting up there in age as far as like an interactive medium in the fandom. So like, the fact that some people who are on those old mucks might be using it to do nefarious things, they're not going to reach as many people as they would before. And I think that's kind of why that this sort of thing could be occurring. It's an interesting thing, Reed, to know about, but I think it felt like people weren't getting the full story, that they were getting it through a lens of somebody who is hyper vigilant. And I think that that's sort of something you gotta be careful about when you get when you're writing nonfiction. You really have to be careful about presenting bias in such a way where people think that what you're telling them is through a lens of somebody who has an agenda. And everyone has an agenda in the end of the day. Like, people want to see the world become better in certain ways. But people will take, like, if you really do want to change things for the better, you have to be careful not to seem too thirsty about it. It's kind of weird in that way, because people will start to go, well, this person wants to change it for their own ends and doesn't care about anyone else but themselves. People could put that lens on it. It's a difficult thing to get to, and it's not, I can't say that there's any right way or wrong way to do it. It's tricky. Anyways, I'm rambling. Let's see what the chat's saying. Oh, Cody. Cody's here. Hey. Oh, yeah. We haven't gotten to that one yet. We're almost there. We're almost to RC the Fox. Ironically, that's like, we'll go over that when we go over the videos part. But that one's a big one. Looks like we had something about cat ladies in an anime. Woohoo. Furries crash. Harvey crashes furries. Okay, so this one was a little bit interesting. If anyone remembers Hurricane Harvey was a big hurricane that like slammed right into Houston, Texas, and caused really massive flooding, like epic flooding, like really, really bad flooding. Obviously, this kind of story is sort of a little not as big as that one. There was actually an interesting discussion which I didn't get to, but it was on my list of things to talk about. Was like, I remember Kage was like, hey, we should get some fursuiters down there to those shelters to, entertain the kids and stuff like that. And, my mind was thinking about, well, what's the logistics behind that? You know what I mean? Like, fursuiting under normal circumstances is difficult. Having spotters in normal circumstances is difficult. Fursuiting in a disaster area, in a, shelter, you're going to be drinking a lot of water. They're not going to set up freaking, heat rooms for you. it's going to be tough, right? It's probably going to be the toughest fursuiting you've ever done in your life. And I was thinking about, like, you know, in my like dreamy mind, my dream mind, I was thinking like, hey, maybe like Prakari Roo does like a bunch of videos on fursuiting and fursuiting things. Maybe she has an opinion on, you know, fursuiting in a disaster area. And she had to recently deal with a typhoon this year too. Like, she literally had to move out of her house due to a typhoon hitting her hometown. So it was sort of a topic I think would have been interesting for her to cover as well. You know, like fursuiting in a disaster area, and I guess I could talk with her about that. It'd be still be kind of a cool thing. Maybe next hurricane season we can talk about something like that. But like Memphis, like the story that seemed to come out of it is what I saw is like Memphis Fur Meet took place like right around that weekend, and you know, Harvey moved up as a tropical depression up basically the southeast of the United States, and Memphis Fur Meet was actually affected by it. You know, not in the epic destructive way as Houston got slammed, but it was a big issue. Yeah, we're just kind of scrolling through the year really quick, and then I'm going to be looking at my channel really quick, and then we're going to talk about the channel in 2018. Sort of how I'm doing it. We're almost there. We're at September. Code of conduct. Lamar, once again, getting very vigilant. You know, basically, this is just like this is sort of, to me, like sort of a preaching to the choir. It's like, unfortunately, people who are reading, and this is sort of goes along with it. It's like, so unfortunately, people who read nonfiction things are going to be pretty much sticklers for rules, in my opinion. They're going to know what code of conducts are. They're going to know these kind of things. It's the people who don't care and don't care to read anything that are going to be your problem people. And so, to me, unfortunately, like, to me, someone like me, it's like, yeah, code of conduct is important, and sort of like, how do you enforce them and how do you do it? But to me, it's sort of like preaching to the choir. In essence, like the people who need to read it, probably not going to read it. And to me, it would have. I mean, it's probably good, but like, meh. Speaking of preaching to the choir, this one was Rauken's free speech and why it matters rant. Once again, like the whole free speech and the furry fandom thing has become like a very big topic over the past year. Like, when is it enforced? When is it not enforced? Rauken is even goes so far as to say like individuals shouldn't make any rules against free speech, even though when we're talking about the First Amendment, it talks about the government can't restrict your right to free speech, but it leaves private individuals with the ability to do it. Rauken is of the belief that you shouldn't even allow private institutions to restrict your free speech rights, which is ironic because I posted an article that wasn't really well received, and then he sort of was like, "Well, you should have restricted that one," and I'm like, "Dude, yeah, that was a debate." So Fur Affinity updates code to disallow hate groups. This one sort of has come up recently as well. Basically, Nazi symbology and Nazi groups were seen as restricted. Graganeer got some flack over this one. He had even alt furries sort of like harass him and make pictures of his dead cat, et cetera, et cetera. I've got to start to pick up the pace a little bit. We're already an hour in. Animated family film, happy film. Oh, this one was the biggest one of the year. Like, as far as like the best received, the best received article. Like, this is it actually became the second biggest one. I actually covered this in one of my videos as well. I spent a literal 8-hour day writing this one. Basically, a furry chairman for a small town in Connecticut got ousted based upon what he had put tolerates rape as a thing on his profile. But he didn't do it purposefully. He thought that he was actually manipulating the tag system. He thought he he thought he was implementing it so that it would show up less on his website, apparently, but it actually put it on his profile as sort of a RP sort of a thing, sort of like F-List does. So, and the people who implemented it, bless their hearts, at So4 were thinking of F-List and sort of using it in that way. But unfortunately, not every user was familiar with F-List. And so they had put it on a part of their website that indicated that it had to do with tagging and stuff. And so it was basically a user error that led to an ouster of a political figure. And I go over like what the person saw and how to fix it. And bless them, they fixed it rather quickly. I also, it also got the attention of obviously the leader of So4 Tormiel. And I had to basically we had like an hour off the record conversation, and at the end of the whole thing was basically and was fixed. Like he wanted just to say, we fixed the issue. Can you please update your article to say we fixed the issue? And I said, yeah, that's fine. So, and that's basically what this update has to talk about. So I put that up. They fixed it like within 24 hours. They were once it was published on Flavor, they're like, yeah, we should fix that issue. It was one of those weird things, and I think this was as far as like 2017 articles and my favorite articles of the year. This one was the thing I think was the best one for me because it mixed the three things that I was really good at doing together. I'm good at politics. I understand politics, and I understand political things, and I read that a lot. I understand computer science and cognitive science and how people interact with computers. And I also know the furry fandom, and this is where those three things just happen to align with one another and go, hey, it was awesome because I like sent him an interview. I'm like, I want to do an interview for an article, and I sent him what seemed to be a mostly harmless interview. So I'm going to show you what the interview was here. Basically, I sent him like 10 questions. The one question I really was interested in, I think, was question 7. I think it was question 7. Yes, it was question 7. So basically I asked him, it's like, it seems kind of strange that as a politician you would put up something like, tolerates rape as something that you'd put on your profile. Did you do this? No. Why would you do this knowingly? And he said, I didn't know. I thought I was doing something with the tagging. And then I'm like, and the thing was, like, I knew that was the thread I was going down because, other articles had sort of said, asked him sort of similar questions, and they were like, and he was like, I don't know why that happened. Like, he seemed kind of like, I have no idea. And so I was like, I thought I was like, oh, I think I know what happened here. And then it's like, because I deal with people who have what I call cognitive dissonance with programs all the time. So, like, when a user doesn't know what they're doing and accidentally does something that they don't expect to have happen to them, like, that's something I do for somewhat of a living. So I'm like, aha, I know what's going on here. So it's kind of like a cool thing that I sort of broke because of my experience with those things. Fun Day Paw Pet Show. Sort of what we're doing right now. No, I'm taking advantage of the fact that Fun Day Paw Pet Show doesn't exist anymore. I'm live recording on a Sunday. So, unfortunately, Fun Day Paw Pet Show was a big staple of the furry fandom for a long time. It came to a close this August. It was, interestingly, I always had a thing in the back of my mind. There was another hurricane that happened this year, and I don't think it was the one that hit Puerto Rico, but it might have been. I don't know if it was Irma or not. But it was one that hit Florida. And it was just like soon after that Fun Day Paw Pet Show was like, we're done. I don't know if they were having to deal with the Florida issue and the hurricane issue, and then they were like, we were thinking of closing up shop for a bit, so now we're really gonna put the end of it. But whatever, regardless, after 18 years, Fun Day Paw Pet Show came to a close. Someone did a review of a furry book. This was the article I published soon after Rauken's thing of free speech, and then he's like, well, you shouldn't have published this one. This guy was an apparently obvious troll. This article was very terrible, but I published it because I didn't want. It was sort of a regret, maybe one of the biggest regrets of 2017, maybe, Like I was like, I published it because I was like, you know what? If we don't publish it, this guy's going to say we're being biased. So even though the article's terrible and it doesn't make very good points, I'm going to publish it anyway. It was not very well received. I kind of figured it wouldn't be. Lamar actually left over that one, I believe. Lamar actually publicly posted on Twitter that she's like, I'm not going to work for a furry rag that allows, you know, this kind of crap on there, like that, you know. So, you know, fair enough. Ironically, Ike is no longer, I think, has been blocked because of certain things. I don't know why. Like, people are being like pretty hush hush about it. I thought it was because he did something that he shouldn't have done with one of the articles, that he was harassing like somebody off site about something, but apparently it was for other, like, I just can't get a good solid read as to why. But apparently they were removed from the site. Being trolly, I guess. Sparkle of Space Tail. There's a thing. So, next. Sonic Fox. Sonic Fox is becoming a big deal in the fandom. He's a furry gamer. He's winning a lot of fighting game tournaments. Injustice 2 was like one of his big ones this year, where he took over a large grand prize pool. He was at Midwest Fur Fest this year also, and unfortunately he was also playing in the Injustice 2 tournament there, and obviously won. For obvious reasons. He's a pro gamer who won at the tournament. This sort of goes to the link and shows you him winning there. He is openly furry. He has he wears fox ears and stuff like that. He's a cool dude. At least he appears to be a cool dude. I haven't interacted with him in person. I did watch him whoop people's butts. It was kind of cool because he was giving people advice on sort of how to do things and stuff like that. Like when he was doing practice rounds and stuff like that, so it's kind of cool to see. Review on a meerkat thing. Do you think furry going mainstream will hurt things? So furry going into the mainstream became a topic as well. And whoops, archive. September. Were we in September? I think we were in September. Yes, we were in September. October. The Wolfman. So someone did Halloween, like a Halloween thing. This one was kind of cool and interesting. Furry Wolf Candy neural networks. Somebody did a neural network of furry names, and did had a computer algorithm generate furry names at random. And they became pretty freaking interesting. That was kind of a cool one. As a computer nerd, I approve. An interview with Dark Blue Comics. That one was sort of promotional. Night in the Woods review. I did that one. My Little Pony movie review. Cobalt the Fox passed on. He was a Furthermore staffer. Griffin Ranger review. The Howling review. RC Fox. Here he is. The man of the hour. No, the man of no hour. So this one, as we're going to go, I'm not going to cover this one too much right now because this one actually became a big one on my channel. And we'll go over it then. American Werewolf in London, so covering more werewolf things. Apparently, sort of a dude from, what was it? The Free Domain Network basically did an interview with a furry, and this is where I'm talking about people using furry raider photos in unaffiliated YouTube videos. He's not interviewing a furry raider here, so it seems weird that they would put furry raider photos on his thing. It seemed like a weird photo choice. This one wasn't well received, but I go into detail as to sort of the tactics that the guy seems to be using in order to sort of convert a furry into sort of a political philosopher, as it were, a political philosophy fandom. He's trying, this guy is very good at making sort of people in a sort of a cult of personality sort of thing, sort of like some people who are political guys do. And I sort of discussed the tactics and stuff like that used in the interview about it in a little bit of detail. Retrospective review. That's it for October. As we get to the modern era, I can go through it a little more quickly because people will have more memory about what happened. Cartoon Action Hour was recently released. The Lion King released its cast for the live action one that's coming out next year, I believe. My Little Pony review, season 7. Guardians, review of a book. Anthro Northwest, that one was a recent one, and I did a video on that, so I won't go over too much detail on it. Plus, I got some critique on it that it was a bit too harsh on the community or that particular convention, and I can sort of agree to that. I sort of took that angle because it was like they did invite someone from the mainstream press. Ling, I believe her name was, from CNN. I don't know when that episode's coming out, but apparently they invited someone from CNN to do recordings of the furries there at that premiere convention without telling anybody until people showed up and had to sign non-disclosure agreements and stuff. Apparently there's some comments there that I didn't read yet. The judge rules on the S. Beagle case. So this goes into the ruling that happened on that case we talked about earlier. That's when it was like a good ruling. I remembered that now. I thought that first article was covering it, but I don't think it was. And then some more reviews. And then obviously we come to December. And then we got this one, which this one's up for an Ursa Major, which is cool, and also is the picture. I had to commission this thing in April, and she did a good job on it. I sort of made a gamble that was going to become the largest furry convention in the world this year, and it did. Luckily, that gamble paid off. As I said, I was worried about a few things. I talked about that in a video not too long ago, so I won't recover that old ground. Quoting Smangu, I think his name is. I'm quoting Mangu, someone like that. Furry administrator there has quit. He was basically a code of conduct person who was supposed to track art and make sure that it was following code of conduct standards. A lot of people were being extremely critical of his very laissez-faire approach to the situation, and so under that much duress, he finally resigned. Oh, noes. How long has it been out? When did the video drop? I heard the beep, and then I'm like, uh-oh, I'm talking to the ether. Anyways, let's see. Uh-oh. Is it going? No, technical difficulties. Oh well, we're back on. Is it still going, or is it crashed still? Oh, no, it's still going. Okay. But the video things, I think the connection to the... there we go. Well, the properties of the Windows thing is messed up. Aha! That's what happens when you do it live. All right, let's fix this real quick. Subregion. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Luckily, I didn't have my head off. That would have been an unintentional face reveal. That would have been hilarious. I want to see live chat. Watch them make fun of me and how stupid this thing is being. Let's make that a little bigger. About right there. All right, enter. Enter. Boom. There we go. Did it work? Okay, there we go. Aha. There we go. Look at, I can see the live chat again. Don't see me behind the curtain. No. You know, it's kind of ironic because I was like, well, I could take my head off and while I'm reading this thing because no one could see my face anyway. If this had happened and then that happened, that would have been bad. Anyways, let me set this back up. Properties. Window capture. Inner window of, not this one, of this one. And Flera. There we go. Okay. Ah, got it. For some reason, it unfixed everything. Hopefully, this didn't split my recording video into two videos. It probably did, but oh well, it's a live stream. I don't care. So Leo Awards, this is where that third award thing I talked about earlier is announced, and I already covered that. So, and then we're up to today, Intimate Little Secrets. So reviews. So that basically covers the videos or the flavor for the year, main news topics. Some of this stuff was not covered by the channel. I just wanted to go over sort of the year, and it's already been an hour and a half, so we're going to really go through really quick the top popular videos on this channel for this year. Because some of the topics I cover on this channel aren't covered on Flera, and vice versa. I should probably get better at writing. The thing I think I do need to focus on in 2018 is getting better at writing, and then probably performing what I write a little bit better. So that way there's not like some things out on one place and not on the other place and stuff like that. So this is the entire year of 2017. So let's go over some of the top videos here. Rocky Mountain Fur Con was a big one. That occurred this year. That one was a big topic that a lot of people talked about with that issue going on. One that was not covered by Flera, interestingly enough, and it wasn't really, it sort of was covered by Dogpatch like once, but like Dogpatch was harsher on 2 than I was, in my opinion, and I was pretty harsh on 2. But was 2 the Ranty Griffin losing his speaking platform at Anthrocon this year, or his performing platform. That was a really big one that caught a lot of people sort of off guard. And I think that's sort of why, like, even though I published this one and I'm fine with the opinions on it, it did sort of like the problem in that this is something I learned really quick. I recorded this on the Wednesday that, you know, To the Ranty Griffin had put up on his channel, like, oh, well, you know, I'm not longer part of Anthrocon. Basically, I recorded that very day. And then I published it on the Sunday just to be consistent on when I'm publishing. The issue is that between the Wednesday that it occurred and the Sunday that I published it, the narratives have already been written. And because the narratives had already evolved, you know, the To the Ranty Griffin fans had their, you know, statements evolve. The people on the Anthrocon board had their statements evolved. My video seemed like it was sort of out of touch because I had recorded it too long ago. So I learned that despite it being probably useful to pre-record some episodes so that if you get sick or you know, that you'll have it ready to go, when you're doing current events, that's not the best thing to do. You have to record basically right almost to the point when you're going to publish, because if you don't do that, then things could change really quick on you and you seem like somebody who's out of touch. So that would be my critique on this particular one, and why it probably wasn't as liked as it could have been, because it wasn't a lot of planning or anything like that. Anthony NC just subscribed. Woo! Thank you. Whoops, I need to put that back up. Let's see. Other things. RC the Fox. This one got a lot of views and a lot of monetary, which makes me feel a little dirty. So RC the Fox was about an individual in Pennsylvania, a furry in Pennsylvania, who is dealing with the court battle right now, dealing with having child underage pornography paraphernalia on his computer and getting caught with that. They're dealing with that legal issue to this day. Not a lot of people covered RC the Fox, I think, but it was a topic of interest in the fandom. So because a lot of people want to, know like when something like that happens, when someone gets arrested for something like that, they do want to know more details about the individual and stuff like that. So as dirty as it makes it feel that it's a popular video that has to happen. So RIP Furry Fandom was number 4. Really? Is this in views or is this in watch time? This is in watch time. So these are the top 10 in watch time. Furry fan, I guess. So let's see. Open ruminations about the thing. Furries discuss it. This is about the Bucks County predator ring. You're noticing a pattern here as far as retention and watch time. People tend to watch a lot of negative news, which says something about the viewers as much as it does about my content on my channel. I try to keep it, it's like, I'm not like Kage who goes, you got to accentuate the positive and eliminate the negative, kind of a thing. Like, I don't look at negative things as like, I want to kill it with fire and not address it at all. But there is a thing with viewership where it's like, the viewers seem to like negative news. People seem to like negative news. I don't know what it is. It's something ingrained in humanity. I don't have any control over it. Like what brings in the views? Talking about To the Ranting Griffin, a controversial figure in the fandom, talking about sexual predators within the fandom, talking about... Now, there was one shining star here, which is this one. This one here. This video here, let me go to the most, not watch time. Is there views? Well, revenue. Oh, we'll look at revenue. Don't look at revenue. No. Now let's go back to overview. I haven't learned to navigate this thing too much. Oh, well, geez, this is being silly. Reset. Rolling review. We could do the whole of 2017. This year. This year. This year. This year. Here it is. All right. So we're going to do not watch time, but views. Views are the things people care about. So Rocky Mountain Fur Con again comes at first. We have the Anthrocon thing. So the third place in views this year was actually this one about a little medley about furries entering the mainstream. And this one I talked about Maskimoles being sold at Walmart. I talked about the squid, the kid, and like what was it, the squid? What is it called? God, what's the video game called? Squidbillies. No, that's not it. It's the Splatoon. Splatoon. That's it. So Splatoon, had a thing where furries became a thing. Like I think it was that werewolves thing, or it was back in August, so it couldn't have been the werewolves thing. It was like during the Ketchup versus Mayo thing, and there was a bunch of furry artists who were on there. As a follow-up to that, Kozaku actually talked about how the art quality in Splatoon's lobby has decreased over time as the artists have sort of moved on to the other video game ventures. And he talks about how the beautiful art of the past has sort of given way to this meme art sort of debauchery culture where people are very bad at drawing and they just draw stupid memes all the time. It seems to me it's like, oh, this is what happens when the furry artists move on, right? It's kind of funny. Anyways, then we have RC the Fox that came in number 4. My talking with Fox Miller came in 5th. The City Councilman came in 6th. Bucks County Predators came in 7th. RIP came in 8th. My rumination or my talk about furries being delivered to their structures back in the beginning of the year was one of that, and then we had the Snagglepuss. The Snagglepuss that came in 10th. He came in 10th on the views. Yes, Snagglepuss made it. He knew he would. He knew he would. So obviously, as I've noticed here, these controversial videos seem to get a lot of views. But I don't focus on them, which is why I don't think my channel has grown as fast as it could have. If I was doing the whole thing based on views instead of what I thought was interesting during the week, I think my channel would have grown a lot faster. There are a lot of furries out there who do things for the views. Admittedly, Carthrix is one of them. He's like, I do it for the views. I want more subscribers. I want to try and grow my subscriber count. By the way, the subscriber count from the beginning of the year, actually, we should look at that. Is there one of that? But as far as like next year, so now we're coming to the last half hour of our little shindig. I wanted to open it up to the chat. We're going to talk about the future of the channel and stuff like that. But let me see if I can find subscribers. It's hard to read with this thing on. Subscribers, there it is. Is this for the whole year? Aha! Subscribers gained 273. Subscribers lost 31. So total subscribers gained over the past year is 242. That's a lot higher than I thought it was going to be, because I know I'm at 270. So basically, like, what is it? 80% of my furries? Like, basically 80% of my subscriber count came from this year. That's amazing. That's a pretty good growth rate for this year. And hopefully next year it'll continue to grow. I've got to get better, though. Obviously, doing some phoning in and doing these weekly videos is not always going to work too well. So now that we've gone through sort of like the top videos of this year, the top sort of news stories that kind of went around, and sort of a year quickly in review, we're going to bring it back to... We're going to bring it back. Let's bring it back to the chat and to the plain camera. And we're going to talk about 2018. How's everyone's 2017 been? Anything that happened to you this year that's been crazy? Go ahead and talk. Uh-oh. Don't get camera shy. It says by the end of next year I might hit 1,000. That'd be cool. 1,000 would be cool. I'd have to do something special for 1,000 subscribers. I'd have to think about what I'm going to do for something special on that. That is actually really cool. That would be cool. Maybe I could hit 10. Let's go. Let's not go big. Let's go big. Let's go 10. Let's go 10,000. Why not 10,000? They're just gonna go. Oh, you'd be surprised. It is sort of what I've heard. It is an exponential factor. As soon as you start catching on, and as soon as things start catching, the increase goes up pretty quickly. As I said, 200 came from this year alone. 242 came from this year alone out of the 279, which means that at the beginning of this year, I only had like 30 subscribers. And I actually ran this channel the entirety of 2016, I believe. Like, I think that I was actually running a video. I was still doing sort of a video a week, everything in 2016 as well. It's just that in 2016, I didn't grow so fast. I think, like, yeah, I think that's true. Huh. Oh, the end of furry. Yeah, the end of furry one was fun. One of the best comments I got for the RIP furry fandom one in 2017 was the one where I talked about To the Ranting Griffin. The funny thing was, like, I was a fan of his, which is why I was able to make it so well, is because, like, I know his content, I know his sort of behavior and stuff like that. I think that there's some real serious reasons as to why his comedic style has fallen out of favor, but mostly it's because when you're dealing with dual identities, when you're dealing with like a comedic identity and a serious identity, it gets really precarious to try and mix the two. And Twitter, unfortunately, doesn't help, all right? A lot of people who've had their careers ruined and destroyed by Twitter are those that don't realize the duality of man doesn't work so well. There's a reason that duality of man exists. It's because your public-facing self and your private-facing self, everybody has a public-facing self and a private-facing self. People want to try and bring those two things together because it's more freeing. It feels natural. When you're posting things on Twitter, like your real philosophical beliefs, like this is my real philosophical beliefs, and then you make a joke later on that is of that sort of philosophical belief, but it's sort of heinous. People can kind of misconstrue as to where the comedy begins and where your seriousness ends, and that sort of blurring becomes really bad. So you really got to be careful about stuff like that as far as those things go. I could probably count about 5 or so times where I would start typing a tweet and say, "Oh, this is kind of funny," and I'm like, I saw this like clever quip, and I would type it up, and then I would like pause for a moment before hitting the send button, and I'm interpreting it from many different angles, and then I go, "No, I could see what's going to happen here. This one angle, I could see someone misinterpreting this quip as this." So either I rephrase it or I just like, I'll just leave it be for now if I don't feel like it's really worth it. So I do have this sort of self-check that I can do on that stuff. That I am on Twitter. Yes, I am. You're not really on Twitter though, Strangelove. So you did. Hi, Toby. You got who did you get recognized by? I see you. Anyways, yeah. So 2018. Some of the big things on 2018 I want to try and get in. One of the biggest things, one of the biggest goals is interviews. That's one big one because obviously me yammering at a camera kind of gets stale after a while. Introducing other people to the mix, bringing them in to talk about certain topics, as I noted Prakari Roo earlier when talking about fursuiting in disaster areas, because she has expertise in fursuiting, in public spaces, and her channel goes over stuff like that, bringing that to the next level of the theoretics of like fursuiting, at a hurricane relief center, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. That would have been kind of a cool thing to do. Of course, it's like, well, I kind of was busy at the time, and like a lot of other topics came up. Actually, I think that's when the consulman thing happened. Like, it wasn't very far after the Houston issue where like the consul, like that chairman thing happened, and that one took my attention completely because it was like a big thing that I knew about. It can be, the chairman one was exhilarating, and I'll tell you why. It's like, have you ever seen those scenes where like from like The Great Mouse Detective where Basil's like going insane, and like he comes running into the house and he's like, I've got this, and he looks like a madman, and this is like when you're first introduced to Basil from The Great Mouse Detective, and he's like he like takes a gun and he puts it against a pillow and shoots, and like the feathers fly everywhere, and he takes the bullet and he puts it under the microscope, and he's like, no, like that kind of a thing. That's sort of how that sort of emotional charge was, like how I was that weekend when that story happened. And then I like got a response from him on that interview, and I'm like, and when I read the news articles and all that stuff came together, and I'm like, oh my God. So I was like, I gotta take the screenshots. I gotta get the screenshots. I gotta get this thing up, and I gotta write on here, and let me try to explain this, but I gotta explain it in a way people will understand it. And because if I ramble, it's like, it was funny. It was great. Ace Squirrel. I've never heard of Ace Squirrel. It says he's a good YouTuber. It says one of the things I'm going to put out copyright issues within the furry community. Well, that is a good topic to talk about. There's a problem, and I got to put an asterisk here. I'm not a lawyer. um, that's the one big thing you have to, and that's one of the biggest things when you got to come in when you're coming in on nonfiction, talking and writing. Know what you know, but know what you also don't know. To bring in copyright issues and things like that, it's like copyright issues is a big topic. It's huge. It's like monolithic. There's a lot of different angles that you could take on it. Are we talking about art? Are we talking about characters? Are we talking about personas? Are we talking about like that thing? And then it's like, then you got to break it down even further. And interestingly enough about law, as human culture and society evolves, there's a lot of things that aren't quite covered by the law yet. And really the only time it really gets covered is when you get into court and see how the system actually plays it out. And even then, when it plays out in court, you have all these lawyers who have like these like freaking advertisements that are like prior results do not guarantee a similar outcome, which just kind of shows you how weird the law is, like law as a human institution, and how fickle it can be to who the judge is at the moment. What did the stars align this way and that way? And like it literally going to court is like literally rolling a dice. Like it's literally like it's really RNG based. Like it's like how skilled are you? It's sort of random chance, but it's also based upon the skills of people on one side or the other side and the judge at the time. And so there's a human factor to it that can affect the outcome, but there's also like random chance and circumstance. And it's like, as much as we like to say that the law is very solid about a lot of things, it's very much a liquid. Oh no, resetting your routers. All right. Yeah, but that's the law. The law is a big house of cards in general, and it's not just copyright law, it's a lot of different kinds of law. Because like the interesting thing about law and human society in general is a lot of different things evolve out of different things, and as the thing evolves over time, some of the older stuff like becomes outdated, but it's still there, and like and it gets really a mess. And that's why like people spend a lot of time and a lot of money in college learning these things, and that's why even like lawyers have sub groups. And even in computer science, interestingly enough, like computer science has become such a big thing where you can literally have different people who know different aspects of computer science. Like some people who know coding, some people who know hardware, some people who know interactions between hardware, which is called information tech, like networking and stuff like that. How technology interacts with one another. Coding people who know about human-computer interaction, which is called like it's sort of cognitive science, artificial intelligence, all those different things. They're all different things within the same thing, but it's amazing to me how often you'll have someone with a computer science degree who's good at artificial intelligence, and they'll go home to their parents' house, and then they'll go, "Could you fix my computer for me, Shunny?" And it's like, first off, your computer's so old, I don't think anyone knows how to fix it. Number two, like, what's wrong with it? Oh, there's something wrong with it. What's wrong with it? And it won't start. Or it gets caught on this one screen, and it's blue, and it's like, what's it saying? Like, what operating system is it on? Like, there's a lot of like details, man. That it's like if you give me details, I can figure it out. But like you're being vague, and that I think lawyers probably get that sometimes too, where it's like, well, copyright. What do you like? What part of copyright? It's like, so unfortunately, like this is how we are in human society. Unfortunately, it's like we have a lot of people who know a lot of different things, and it's communicating between those two different groups is important. Because if there's misconstrued information on one side, some people like, and particularly if somebody doesn't have a high trust factor, like there's a trust factor, right? And this is probably like one of these archaic things about communication and stuff like that. Is like if somebody doesn't trust other people, and then somebody tells them something, but tells them in such a way that they felt like they felt like they understood what they were saying, but they didn't really understand what they were saying, and then they do it, and then it breaks things even worse. And he goes up to us, like, you told me to do this thing, and he's like, I didn't tell you to do this thing. I told you, I thought I gave you very simple instructions. Like, you did. I did that thing. Well, what did you do? Well, this is what I did. No, that's not what I told you to do. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, like that's a big problem. And I deal with it every day at work. Every freaking day. Like, I have to talk between people who manage projects, people who do accounting stuff, people who do field work, people who do computer work, and I have to make sure all of those people are working toward a common goal in such a way. And a customer that says, I want this thing, but they really don't want that thing, they want this. It's, as artists, you actually sort of understand that too. It's like a commissioner will go, well, I want this thing, and you're like, well, what? Can you give me more details? It's like, well, I sort of think I like it like this. And then you're like, no, as an artist, if you become experienced as an artist, you're like, oh no, I know what they really want. Like they're telling me what they want with their face, but I know it's like I think they will like this better. So I'm going to sketch it out for them and see if it works. And lo and behold, as you become more experienced, you start to go, I know what they want, even though they're not telling me it in the right way, sort of a thing. But anyways, I'm going on tangents. Yeah, as I said, I'm not an expert in artistry, and I'm not an expert in copyright law. I don't know if Boozy is either, like Boozy Badger or the lawyer there. I think that I don't know what he's an expert in. This is like another like thing in the back of my mind. It's like everyone who goes Boozy Barrister, it's like Boozy's a lawyer. It's like, a lawyer in what? Right? It's like, what's his specialty? Because lawyers, like, you have people who are good at, let's see, lawyers who are good at, like, what's it called? Real estate lawyers. You got divorce lawyers. You got frickin' traffic lawyers. You got DWI lawyers. You got, like, a bunch of specialties. It's like, what's your specialty, man? Like I don't know what Boozy's specialty is as a lawyer. All he is a furry lawyer. Well, that's like me saying, well, I'm a furry computer scientist. It's like, but it's not really what I do for a living anymore. It's not like I code all day. It's like I learn what people want and I sort of explain it to people who are more efficient at coding than I am. You know, who wants to conquer the world? That's no good. Conquering the world's too much of a hassle, man. Like the world needs to let it do its own thing. Thank you. I'm sure the fursuit maker will enjoy that compliment. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Let's see. Substantial similarity. It's a legal test. Yeah, that whole like don't just prior results do not guarantee a similar outcome sort of thing. Yeah, the law is sort of very far behind right now, just as a personal opinion, both in technology and in copyright and in like all this thing. Like the law hasn't really even caught up with the internet yet. And this is where we're falling into net neutrality. Which, by the way, in 2018, I found some things out using my analytics. Oh, let me go back to my analytics for a second. I gotta show you one thing here. Let me pop this up real quick. Revenue. This is gonna be a topic of a video next year. Because I did a video earlier this year where I was asking about revenue. And I want to do this in November. Can I do this in November? Last month. Well, I guess it was earlier than that. I'll get a picture of it later. But in essence, that RIP Furry Fandom video had a lot of swear words in it. And I knew it was going to get revenue blocked. But I didn't care because I wanted to do it anyway. So it did get revenue blocked pretty quickly. But for some odd reason, the YouTube algorithms kept revenuing it and unrevenuing it and revenuing it. But for a good solid month, it was revenue blocked. But something happened during that revenue block, and that was YouTube Red subscribers were still giving me revenue despite it being revenue ad blocked. And that's good information to know. Because that means YouTube Red subscribers actually circumvent the adpocalypse. Knowing that information, it sounds like we are good to go on this whole YouTube Red Union thing that was in the back of my mind. Basically, you can use YouTube. We could try and see if we can get other YouTubers to find out that if they can get their subscribers to subscribe to YouTube Red and sort of unionize it in a way that forces YouTube to sort of behave in the way that we want it to. Yeah, we could sort of bribe Google. And basically fight both net neutrality and the adpocalypse at the same time. Being that Google very much has a vested interest in keeping the net neutral, as opposed to Verizon or AT&T and other companies such as that. So we could try to say, well, here, we're going to subscribe to you, but under the basis that you fight for net neutrality and that you try to take over as ISP in certain regions of the country. You could do something like that. Or am I okay? Yeah, it works. Yeah, it does. Am I okay? I'm all right. How are you? I do think you should do a video on the fandom future of furry conventions in general. The funny thing about furry conventions is that they can change really quickly. Like a furry convention that was here one day could be gone the next. It's really hard to predict the futures of it. I did talk about that a little bit in my last video. Not much interesting is going to happen this year as far as I know, as long as nothing weird goes on and we lose a convention suddenly for some weird unexplained reason. But as far as like anyone's growing and stuff like that, like I think Furry Week Atlanta's in the top 4 now. I think Furry Fiesta is going to be in the top 5 now. I don't see any big number changes that's going to make anything interesting happen like this year, like in 2018, like happened with Midwest Fur Fest this year. I don't think like somebody's like, well, could Anthrocon take back the lead position and they sort of have a horse race? My projections don't really say that that's the case. I think that Anthrocon will maintain a solid second. My biggest question mark is how Pittsburgh itself is going to react. Because they haven't yet. I don't think they have yet as a thing. Even though because I don't think they don't look at furry news all that much. But when it comes up next year, I'm pretty sure that they're going to have to realize it's like, oh, well, we're no longer the largest furry convention in the world, and we can't really advertise that as sort of a thing. I think furry will always be part of that community as far as like propaganda goes, but who knows? But as I was saying. Maybe I should go for some water. Oh, it's 2 o'clock. Hey. So to wrap up, 2018, I plan on trying to do some interviews, but I also wanted to try and do it in an interesting way. For instance, stop clocks. There was an interesting thing that Vox did during this last election season that I wanted to try and see if it would work on a YouTube sort of thing. If I'm doing interviews with somebody, I want to make it sort of interesting where we talk about things that we sort of debate on a little bit, but also using sort of a stop clock sort of a thing. The reason if you ask him if I'm okay, I'm actually just trying to stuff this thing back in my thing because it's coming loose. That happens over time. It's not like I'm like scratching my throat because I'm dying of like thirst or anything. It's just like my fluffiness was sort of falling out of my shirt. That's what you were asking about. So there was this idea of like a chess clock. You know, like you have like when you're playing chess competitively, you'll have like what's called a chess clock, where a person could take as much time as they want to on a move, but while they're thinking about their move, they have like this clock ticking down. So they have an overall amount of time they can use for the duration of the game on their move. So they want to try and make the early moves as fast as possible because you don't have to think about it too much, so that when you get down to the later end of the game where you have to think a little harder, you have more time to utilize. I think that sort of format in a debate, I'd be interested in trying to actually do it, because Vox talking about like the thing sort of did it in theory. I would like to see if that sort of thing would be actually useful in an actual thing where you have an overall time limit of how much time a person can talk about the thing, but when you're talking, as you're talking, your talk is ticking down, and as they're not talking, they have more time spending up. Because what I notice a lot in interviews, particularly in the furry fandom and stuff like that, is you get one person who's really shy and you get one person who's really outspoken, and in a equal playing field where there's no limits, one person takes over the conversation, right? So the one person, aka, dominates the conversation. So if you break it down to like, here, you get 20 minutes overall, you get 20 minutes overall, this is the topic we're talking about, go, you know, a person who, if you have a third person who's moderating, you can stop the clock if they want to interject or ask a different question, or, you know, follow up on different things, you know, that sort of a thing. It would be interesting to see, and that's something I would like to try and introduce in 2018. Also in 2018, obviously, try to get some stuff. I'll probably buy a tie pin, as one of you has been asking me to do, because this tie goes all over the place and goes wee, it goes wee, it goes wee, wee. You know, so yeah, getting a tie pin to pin it in place so it doesn't go all over the place would be useful. You know, small things like that. Commissioning artists to get a banner, you know, make the channel look like a channel. A banner will be useful for more than just YouTube, like my Twitter and everything else. Every site that has sort of a banner sort of a thing would be useful to have. Other things like that. But those are the goals for 2018. Feel free to share any goals that you think I should have for 2018. Any topics that you'd like to cover, obviously you can DM them to me at Tantrum McNally. But for now, I'm going to let you guys get out there and enjoy your New Year's Eve with your families and your friends. It was very good to talk with you and review this 2017 year. And hopefully this year will be nicer to us a little bit, just as any year should be nicer to you. Yeah, I should have a nice banner. I should buy one. I should buy a banner. I'm very fluffy. Anyways, yeah, I should probably get some water. Yeah, it's been 2 hours, man. I have longevity. I don't know why that is. Like I'm very good at like not dying really quick. But yeah, I'll probably drink some liquids. I'm gonna get the hop out of here. Hope you guys enjoy your new year, and hopefully you'll have your resolutions to make. And yeah, put suggestions in the comments below when it's posted. Kick a like, kick a subscribe button, kick a comment in the comment section. What are you guys going to be doing for the new year who came in reading this late? If you watched an entire 2 hour and 8 minute video of me rambling, then congratulations to you. Your New Year's resolution is to do something more productive with your time. No, you're good. This was very productive. Looking back at our fandom's history is a productive use of your time. It's something you want to do. Don't judge people for that. That's very rude of me. Anyways, oh man, it was a great year. Despite everything, in spite of the world around us, I think we're still doing all right, and hopefully we still do all right next year. Getting the hop out of here, guys. I'll let you go for reals. Have a good one.